this is what is courage? So the definition of courage, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is first the ability to do something that frightens one, like bravery, and then strength in the face of pain and grief. But where does the word courage come from? So the English word courage comes from the Latin word cor, which means from the heart. And then in a book by Brene Brown, she says that in earlier times, courage meant speaking one's mind by telling one's heart. And then I just looked at the Hebrew words for courage as well. And the one is amatz, and it means be strong, alert, solid, to be bold, to make firm, to be obstinate, and to exhibit strength. And then there was another word as well, and it's chazak. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it means to prevail, to be firm, to display one's strength, or to use one's strength. So in the Hebrew, words that are used for courage are best defined as a willingness to take action. So because of the other one where it said that to speak one's heart, so I just want to look at what should be in our hearts. So in Deuteronomy 6 verse 5, it's love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. And then also in Deuteronomy 6 verse 6, these commandments that I give you today are to be upon your heart. So God's commandments should also be in our hearts. And then Jesus reinforces this in Matthew 22 verses 37 to 39. And then Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So by loving God, we love his commandments. And if all his commandments are love-based, what should be in our hearts is love. So then I've got a little heart here, and we've got God and neighbors taking up the most, and then self is the last part. So for us today, we're going to look at courage being speaking from the heart and then taking action with it. So when I was looking at courage, there are 6 types of courage. So there's physical courage first, which is to proceed without fear, the fear you have of physical harm. So that's like what we'd normally consider courage, like a superhero. And then number 2 is social courage, where you expose yourself to embarrassment or ridicule for what you are doing or how you behave, or even nowadays what you believe in. And number 3 is moral courage, so standing up for your moral views, even though it may end badly for you, especially when your moral views don't fit in with society's mainstream ideas. And then the 4th type of courage is emotional courage. So when you go into a relationship with the knowledge that you will be emotionally impacted sometime in the future. And then number 5 and 6, I just put them together, is intellectual and spiritual courage. So intellectual courage is the willingness to have your mind changed, and spiritual courage is almost the same, but normally deals with philosophical questions that don't have a definite answerable question. And with both of these, there needs to be a vulnerability to be considered courage. So your views and your intellect are in question with these. So I'm going to just look at Moses for all of these, with physical, social, moral, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual courage. So when I was starting to do this class, I was thinking of doing different people for the different courages, but I kept coming back to Moses. So I thought that I'll just stick to him, and we're not going to do like his life in chronological order. We're going to be jumping around in his life a bit. So the first one we're going to look at is physical courage. So Moses showed physical courage when he was not afraid of physically dying. So when he went to see Pharaoh after the death of the firstborn. So Pharaoh's firstborn son, who was the heir to Egypt and the throne, had just died. And just before this, after the plague of darkness, Pharaoh had told Moses and Aaron to get out of my sight and make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see me, you will surely die. And that's in Exodus 10, verse 28. So now after this, when Pharaoh's son had died, Moses and Aaron were summoned to see Pharaoh again. And I was thinking, like, how would he have felt? I would have felt scared for sure, because he told you that you were going to die if you saw him again. And yeah, he summons you after his son has died. And I would be thinking, yeah, he's like, for sure going to kill me now. But Moses showed courage by trusting in God, because he knew that God was going to rescue the Israelites from Egypt. And then just a verse to go with physical courage for us in Psalm 56, verses 3 and 4. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I will not be afraid. What can mortal man do to me? Okay, so then we're going to look at social courage. So I think Moses showed social courage when he went to Egypt, even though he felt inadequate with his speech. When God had told him to go to Egypt, he had said that he was unable to speak, and who would even listen to him? So in Exodus 4, verses 10, Moses said to the Lord, "O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." But he must have tried when he went to Egypt to speak to the Israelites, because in chapter 6 of Exodus it says, "But Moses said to the Lord, if the Israelites will not listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen to me, since I speak with faltering lips?" So Moses, it seemed, did try to give over whatever issue he had about his speaking, and but he still felt inadequate with himself. And I think that just goes to show that God provided Aaron for him. So some say that he had a stutter, and others say that it was maybe he couldn't answer quickly, or maybe in the right manner. So in Acts 7, verse 22, it says that Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and action. So just a thought, going back to the meanings of courage, both in English and in Hebrew, could it be talking about his courage here? He was speaking from the heart and taking action. So he was speaking what God wanted him to do. And even though he was afraid, he was still going about God's word. So then we go to moral courage. So moral courage, we're not going to look at exactly Moses here, but his unnamed Egyptian mother. So there's some speculation as to who she was, but it's not important for this class as so much as the actions. So she was Pharaoh's daughter, and she knew about the law that Pharaoh had issued to throw every boy under 2 years old into the Nile. And when she goes to wash, she finds a child, and then she does the opposite and takes the child out of the Nile, defying her father. And she knows he's a Hebrew when she finds him, but she still adopts him. So she showed moral courage, physical courage, and social courage. So Egyptians, we are told in the beginning of Exodus, dealt harshly with the Israelites and made their lives bitter. So if you imagine that Pharaoh had issued this law that all the children must be killed, and Hebrews were of a low standing in their eyes. So you can imagine the stigma she must have faced when she adopted this Hebrew child. So then in Timothy 1, verse 7, "For God did not give us a spirit of timidity, but a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline." Okay, so now we go to emotional courage. So emotional courage was the one that dealt with when you're in a relationship with somebody or many people with the knowledge that you'll be emotionally impacted sometime in the future. So I think Moses showed a lot of emotional courage throughout his leadership of Israel. So whenever things became hard, the Israelites would always blame Moses. So when he first went into Egypt and asked Pharaoh to let them go, and then Pharaoh had said that they obviously had too much time on their hands, so he upped their quota, and they were also to collect their own straw for the bricks they had to make. They blamed Moses, and when Pharaoh pursued them after he let them go, when the waters were bitter at Marah, and when they complained about having nothing to eat or no water to drink or anything, they always blamed Moses. So yes, just some verses from when they blamed him. So Exodus 14 verse 11, they said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us into the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us up out of Egypt? And then Exodus 15 verses 23 to 24, when they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That is why the place is called Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, what are we to drink? Exodus 16 verse 3. The Israelites said to them, Aaron and Moses, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the foods we wanted to. But you brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. And then I was thinking, like, with the golden calf as well, when Moses came, well, when God told him that what they were doing when he went up into the mountain, like, how would he have been feeling? He had been leading them. They were always grumbling against him. And now they were worshiping an idol after God had done so many things for them. And God wanted to destroy them, but Moses pleads with God to save them. And then when they rebelled against Moses and Aaron after the exploration of the land, and they didn't want to go in, and then God is angry with them and said to Moses that he would just strike them with a plague and make Moses even a greater and stronger nation than them. But Moses, again, he pleads with God for them because he knows that they are God's people. And then a verse for us for emotional courage as well is James 1 verse 12. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Then we're going to go to intellectual and spiritual courage. So I think Moses showed intellectual and spiritual courage at the burning bush in Exodus 3 verses 2b to 3, and Moses saw the bush that was on fire and it did not burn up. The courage he showed here was he wasn't afraid of something that was putting his intellect into question. So a bush on fire that wasn't being burned up and a voice coming from it, but he was willing to find out what it was and why it was happening. So we need to remember now that he was an ordinary shepherd tending to his sheep, doing his everyday job. So what would your reaction have been? So Moses, I think, was a bit hesitant, but again, he let his intellect be questioned. And so when it says God was talking to him and said that throw your staff down and it'll become a snake. And you think, like, if we did it, like, I don't know, it would just seem like crazy. And like when we read these things in the Bible, sometimes I think we don't actually like grasp what it must have been like for him. So now like his spiritual intellect, his spiritual courage comes into question. So even though he questions God and thinks he's not good enough, he still trusts in God and goes, he saddles his donkey, takes his wife and children and the staff that God told him to take, and then goes to Egypt. So on the way as well, it says the Lord tries to kill him, and then Zipporah comes and she's their sons. And this was something Moses should have done because the circumcision was a sign of the covenant between Hebrews and God. So how could Moses lead God's people if he hadn't even placed his own children under God's covenant? So, and then I was thinking, like, how would you have felt if you were Moses? So God had come to you and said, look, I want you to take my people out from Egypt and that. And then you're like, no, not really. I can't do it. And then God shows you the signs and says, no, you can. And you're like, okay. And then on your way, like, he tries to kill you. But it doesn't really seem if this phases Moses or anything. He remains focused on the task that God has set out for him to do. So when life has questions for us, both intellectually and spiritually, let us ask God what the answers are. And we can get them through praying, reading the Bible classes, and I think just in everyday life, if we pray, God will show us a way. So in James 1 verse 5, it says, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. Okay, and then I just wanted to go and show that Jesus also showed all these types of courage. So we're not going to go into a long one, but just this quick slide. And I went here because it says Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So if we are basing our lives on what Jesus was, I think we need to possess or try to possess all these types of courage. So Jesus showed physical courage. He was not afraid to speak about his belief, even if that would mean he would be physically harmed. In Luke 2, when he was speaking and that the people wanted to throw him off a cliff, and then there was another time when he wanted to be stoned. He was going to be stoned as well. But I think also just he carried on speaking even though he knew that the Pharisees and that were finding fault with him. So then he showed social courage, that he didn't judge people by who they were thought to be. So if we think of Zacchaeus, the Samaritan woman, the centurion, the woman caught in adultery, he showed them love and not judgment, even though people around them were judging him. So we read that he was mocked for the way he was. In Matthew 28, verse 29, when the Roman soldiers, they were mocking him. And then moral courage. So Jesus showed us moral courage by loving those the world thought didn't deserve it. So if we think of like the blind people and leper and like that, so he showed that God's laws are based in love. And then emotional courage. So he knew Jesus was going to betray him, but still he acted lovingly towards him. So at the supper, he washed his feet, he ate with him. And then, if you think of Peter as well, when he said that before the cock crows, the twice for us, you'll be done for us, or something, I can't remember. But he knew that Peter was going to betray him, and in a way like that, but he still showed love to him. And then intellectual and spiritual courage. So I don't think it was his belief, intellectual or spiritually, that had been questioned, but I think he did show courage by asking God if there was another way, and also then by accepting God's way, and then accepting that he would be crucified. So here are some verses to help us live a courageous life for God. So, but you take courage. Do not let your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. 2 Chronicles 15 verse 7. And then in Isaiah 41 verse 13. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. And then 1 Corinthians 16 verse 13. Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be men of courage. Be strong. And then Joshua 1 verse 9. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And then I just wanted to, I'm going to play a song after this, but I just wanted to end with this in Psalm 119, verses 41 to 56. May your unfailing love come to me, O Lord, your salvation according to your promise. Then I will answer the one who taunts me, for I trust in your word. Do not snatch the word of truth from my mouth, for I put my hope in your laws. I will always obey your law forever and ever. I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought out your precepts. I will speak of your statutes before kings and will not be put to shame, for I delight in your commands because I love them. I lift up my hands to your commands which I love, and I meditate on your decrees. Remember your words, your servant, for you have given me hope. My comfort in my suffering is this: your promise preserves my life. The arrogant mock me without restraint, but I do not turn from your law. I remember your ancient laws, O Lord, and find comfort in them. Indignation grips me because of the wicked who have forsaken your law. Your decrees are the theme of my song wherever I lodge. In the night I remember your name, O Lord, and I will keep your law. This has been my practice. I obey your precepts.